President Bola Tinubu has announced the appointment of special advisors to his administration. Dele Alake has been appointed as a special advisor for special duties, communications and strategy, while Wale Edun is appointed as special advisor for monetary policies. Former EFCC chairman Nuhu Ribadu will serve as the special advisor for security. Others are Yao Darazo as the special advisor for political and intergovernmental affairs, John Ugochukwu Wajumogu, special advisor for industry, trade and investment, and Zekius Adeliji have been appointed as a special advisor for revenue. 2 female appointees bring the total number of those appointed to 8. They are Olu Vareje, who will serve as the special advisor for energy, and Dr. Salman Ibrahim Anas will serve as the special advisor for health. Just last week, the Senate approved a request of the president to appoint 20 special advisors. Well, for more on this, I'm joined in the studio by the Policy Strategist and Group CEO of the Global Investment and Trade Company, Baba Yusuf, and the Current Affairs Analyst, Professor of Communications and Deputy Dean of the Postgraduate School at Bayes University in Abuja, Professor Abiodun Adeni. Gentlemen, good to see you, and thanks for your time. And, well, people are still talking about the time, you know, how they put it. It was even Lagos that started the first 100 days in Nigeria, and now the counting is less than 20 days, and the president seemed to have started. Let's start with you, Professor Adeni. Looking at this, we had 2 breaking stories back to back. Yesterday was the suspension of the EFCC chairman, and today we're having the special advisors. Speak to us on the speed at which we're getting these developments from the government.
Well, that's what we expect of a new administration, really. We expect them, you know, to try to settle down as quickly as possible, and certainly that means having the right pieces, you know, in the jigsaw in the right places, by having appropriate appointments to man positions of responsibilities. Ordinarily, some of us thought that maybe these appointments will have been well thought of in advance of our inauguration, but that they are coming out at all is also very fine. 28 out of 20, we still expect some more. And of course, yes, having these fellows, you know, these gentlemen and ladies fitted in this position is a welcome development, largely a round peg in the round hole. We expect that some of the errors we have been seeing, you know, maybe from civil servants signing press releases, you know, and not giving some details, allowing media to make mistakes, to do unnecessary speculations. This one will hopefully be stopped, you know, especially with the appointment of a specialist, you know, an experienced expert, an intelligent person, somebody who is gifted with the gift of the gab, like Dele Alake as a spokesperson. Remember, he's got so much experience behind him. He's a rounded person. He's been a media executive, a broadcaster, an editor in the 80s or in the 90s of National Concord. And of course, he's got the power of words as well, you know. And I think largely he also has a temper to manage communication, which is also very, very sensitive. And of course, if you look at Nuhu Ribadu, you can't fault his expertise. His style as EFCC head, you know, was one, you know, he approached it with gusto, brought in a lot of energy, vibrancy into the anti-corruption crusade, and of course, led to the decline of our rating, you know, in the anti-corruption index, you know. So the lady there too, in charge of oil, I think Ayo Arowolo. Energy. I've listened to her on television. Going by that alone, I think she knows what she's going to do. You know, not a bad person in terms of the understanding of the sector. And of course, who else is there that is a no-name? Quite a number of them, really. So what about Wale Edun, an expert, somebody would know that has been around President Bola Tinubu for ages. In fact, people were also thinking that he was going to be finance minister. But this is not bad at all. You know, considering his expertise, we expect that the president will leverage on their experiences, you know, to deliver the needed goods. You know, what this tells me that if you take a sample of those of them that we know publicly on account of their public reputation, you can say that it's largely an appointment, you know, that you can describe as people with the requisite expertise, you know, a slight departure from the past, not necessarily based on maybe connectionism, you know, nepotism, favoritism, cronyism, you know, but appointment based on merit, largely anyway. And of course, I was also concerned about balancing, because that has been our been in the past. We've made the point that there's no section of this country that you don't find the required expert. largely, yes, we saw a little bit of struggle to create a balance so that it won't be like because the president is a Yoruba man, he'll populate himself with Yoruba people.
All right, okay,
just let me land, please. Now, we saw good balancing across ethnic groups, across gender, But like one of your last speakers said, being an advisor does not mean your advice will be taken. President Bassington reminded us those days that you are an advisor. The fact that you're an advisor does not mean that I will take your advice. That does not mean you should stop advising me. Just continue to advise me. If you stop advising me, I will fire you. Their responsibility to advise, but the onus is also on the appointer, to heed their advice for the good of the country, so that decision will be well informed, based on processes that have gone through the input of experts.
Okay, then,
not one that is coming from ignorance.
Let me bring in Baba Yusuf. I smile when you use you just crafted the word that connectionism. I like them. We'll come back and speak on that some other day. But again, it would seem as if your crystal ball, your political crystal ball came right, because I recall you had also spoken that you see a president that will hit the ground running. So you're not surprised at all seeing all of this. But again, speak to us on some of the aid that you have seen so far and what you think this will mean for Nigeria.
Thank you, Suleiman. Like you rightly said, some of us envisage this. My response will be more on the methodology and the expectations rather than the individuals. A lot have been said by my colleague, the professor, and even the other guests on the personalities. Interestingly, most of them are well known, especially in their focal point areas of expertise. So it's good hire. I'm not expecting anything less from Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, my perspective would be a bit different. The layers of governance from a strategic point of view is beginning to emerge for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The kind of quality of people he has placed as the first line charge, the people that have his ears at the first layer, can be the indication of the kind of quality of the Federal Executive Council we're going to have. If you have a Wale Edun, who people thought was going to be a minister, is sitting by his side as a special advisor, I envisage a strategy of a clearinghouse kitchen cabinet style of governance. Bigger. Because he has people that possibly sometimes have to vet what ministers bring at that layer or add value to it before it is executed or presented. So this is a president that wants to be double sure-footed, and is a president that wants to move with speed. So there's no time to learn. There's no time for excuse. We heard him using that statement today at the National Economic Council. So I believe that the days ahead are going to be very interesting from the point of view of results. Also from antecedents. I belong to the same school of thought of which Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is our senior. Performance is not measured by events, but by results. I believe that from the get-go, if you look at it, tomorrow will be 18 days since he took office. Almost every day a milestone is ticked off and tangible results are seen. So I expect that moving forward, the remaining 12 advisors that are coming are going to hold critical portfolios. Look at this. Wale Edun, with all his expertise, wide-ranging from specialists to generalists, is given a portfolio within the overall finance portfolio to give as an advice. And you give another expert a portfolio to look at revenue. So you have focal point people, what you call focal point people, looking at these critical areas, even within an overarching sector. So the days ahead are going to be pretty much interesting.
And quickly here, let's talk about Nuhu Ribadu. He's there on the list. And security has been one of the key issues in Nigeria. It was one of the big points during the campaigns for all candidates. What do you see in this mix, bringing Nuhu Ribadu, a former police officer, a former anti-corruption chief?
Most of the time we complain about leadership in this country, but while we're complaining, we're also talking about the exemplars, people who have created differences, maybe at some level of differences at the agency level, Nuhu Ribadu, Nasir Rufai, Okonjo-Iweala, the present governor of Anambra State, as governor of the central bank. There are some of the people that have, Governor Fashola as governor of Lagos State, there are some of these people that have made differences in the bids that they have been given. So Nuhu Ribadu stands out, pioneer chairman of EFCC, and of course his record is there for us to see. The momentum was high, even though he was not perfect. No human being is perfect, but he remains an exemplar. And we just expect him to leverage on that. We're expecting that, there were speculations that people were already congratulating him even that he was going to be the national security advisor, but he got this all the same, which is also a very powerful, potent position that if probably used, if probably harnessed, like he said, if his advice are taken, of course, we should be able to gain some mileage in terms of remedying the intractable problem of insecurity that is bedeviling us and troubling our economy and distracting us from other things. So I think it's not a bad candidate, really. And that was why I was saying that the 4 or 5 of them that have a public reputation of excellence, are more than enough to be a good sample of the kind of advice that we should be expecting that our president will be giving at the end of the day. And
I see, Baba Yusuf, you want to add to that because you've been nodding.
Yes. To add to that, I see a slight, tweaking of the overall governance strategy from the point of view of security. A lot of people, like Prof said, envisage Malam Nuhu Ribadu to be the national security advisor. With all due respect to Malam Nuhu Ribadu, I'm one of those that felt it appears, if he's going to take that position, there may be some kind of provisions. It turns out to be so, because the kind of expansive nature of the national security. If you look at the American model, you have Homeland Security, you have the military, you have the Pentagon, you have the CIA, and you need somebody that can bestride this, humongous institution and dealing with intelligence, dealing with proactiveness and all that, and the resourcefulness. And you need to have the respect of all these critical stakeholders. But indeed, Nuhu Ribadu is a model of governance and excellence, and that his strength should be leveraged. How the president intends to do that, to now give him a special advisor in security, I reckon that the president is taking the security so serious that he would like to have close to him all the critical stakeholders. So he may actually have more or less a kind of focal point vision on that security, line to line. But it's a good hire in that particular regard.
Now we're talking about Nuhu Ribadu. Let's talk about the agency he manned as a pioneer chief, the EFCC. And one big story that took Nigerians to bed was the suspension indefinitely of the young man who was the chief there, Abdurrashid Bawa.
Very unfortunate. That agency has become more like the graveyard of reputation.
Graveyard of reputation.
Of reputations, apart from Nuhu Ribadu. Even Ribadu left in some controversial circumstances. Although he was never probed, I'm not aware he was probed. But every other leader, every other chairman thereafter have gone through some kind of controversy around, maybe some things that you ordinarily not expect for, a cleanser rather. It's a very tough one. We'll have to continue to wait, until we get final outcome of the investigation.
As we wait quickly.
But the point is this.
Just for 1 minute. Sorry to cut you there, because as we wait, now you spoke about EFCC, and one of the key things people should also ask is that, the key concerns of experts like yourselves, they keep saying that there are a lot of things that the FCC shouldn't even jump into. For instance, you do not expect to see the FBI, auctioning what it is confiscated. So perhaps maybe that's the tempting ground.
That's what we say. It's a very difficult situation. Now we exist in a rentier state, a political economy that is very bankrupt. Where people believe that institutions of states are supposed to be pilfered, and if you are not interested, even the people around you will probably see you as a terrible outlier. Somebody who's maybe something is probably wrong with the person's head. So you find it very difficult for people to operate, and come out immaculate like they probably went. We're not, before they went, in any case, we're not casting any aspersion, but we're just saying that even the society in which we exist, is one that is largely bankrupt, where abnormality is somewhat normalized, and when you want to be the outlier in this matrix, and they see you as a wrong-headed person, who shouldn't have been prayed for in the first instance for you to get those kind of appointment. So that's why we see individuals, who distinguish themselves must really be a strong-willed individuals, exemplars, people who are ready to leave very strong legacies for themselves, and who wouldn't mind whose ox is God, and who wouldn't mind the pressure tactics of friends, relations, and all of that, you know, compliant with what we always talk about, the concentric circle of leadership. That circle means that you privilege the community before yourself, the family, and your friends. But in this instance, you're expected to privilege your family and friends, you know, before the community. And of course, very shortly after, you're always caught, your hands will be caught in the cookie jar in a situation where you are supposed to be the exemplar, the model, you know, the beacon of hope who's supposed to fight a malaise that is the big elephant in the room, a malaise in the system, as the case could be. But again, like I said, we'll have to continue to wait, because I know that man, Abdul Rashid, a young man, you know, in his 40s, you know, who is probably concerned about his future, who would ordinarily have been determined, you know, to leave a mark so that he can live the rest of his life well, you know. But now that allegations have been laid against him, it's very unfortunate. We weren't expecting this at all, because he hasn't even done the first term, really. And of course, he still has a career, plenty of career ahead of him, until we hear the outcome finally, and we may not be able to come to judgment. And that's why it's important for government as well to be concerned about letting us know what the outcome of these investigations are. Remember, we're still dealing with the Magu one. We haven't had anything. And this one is coming on top of that, you know. And I hope that it will not go the same route.
And Baba Yusuf, what do you think about this? Did you see this coming?
I see it coming, but not immediately, to be honest. And to that, my contribution is this. There are 4 critical things that brings the true quality of people, male or female: power, wealth, trust. And in a school of philosophy, when you go on a long journey with someone, some people say marriage, for example, brings out the true quality of people. What am I saying? There are some critical positions that we have seen, and it's a lesson for all of us in the last 23 years. The moment they hire somebody, even if it's a technocrat or she's a professional, and that person becomes political or becomes influenced politically, then the play out is always negative. We saw it play out many times. So to those professionals that are taking position now as technocrats, this should be lessons for all of us. I give you an instance. I had to quickly check the name of this lady, the former FIRS boss, Mrs. Okauru, who led the Federal Revenue Service, sterling quality, excellent performance, unblemished, and moved on into the corporate world to continue doing what she's doing. She was able to meander around that, you know, palace of power without getting tainted politically. And now that is the problem. You have an anti-corruption czar or czars, including the former one, Magu and all that, that ended up, not necessarily becoming political. There are positions that should be quiet, their operations should be stealth, quiet, and more impactful. So when you see these people becoming more or less, you know, in the face of the media, more or less like in the showbiz business, there's definitely going to be a problem, because by practice, by discipline, these are operations that should be silent, stealth, and you should be more felt than to be seen. So politics is a very contagious thing. The moment you lean towards that, you get. I give you another example. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala did it deftly. She came, she was highly political, she was not even holding offices like that. She was Minister of Finance, she was heading economic team, and she did it excellently well. And when it came to a point where it was becoming toxic, what did she do? She walked away. Today, she's the DG of the World Trade Organization. So these things bring out the true personalities of people. Sometimes some of them get overwhelmed, maybe they are not prepared, and then sometimes maybe because of personal ambition.
Well, as Professor Adeni said, well, we're still waiting to get more outcome, and when we do, we'll come back and actually speak. Yes, I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, for your time, Baba Yusuf, and Professor Abiodun Adeni. Many thanks for your time, as always. Well, that's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Do join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. It's goodbye, and thank you for watching.